Morning, brothers. Okay. So today we're jumping into a letter to Thyatira. We've taken a look at a couple of different churches over the last couple of weeks. And
what do you think you'd write to our church?
You know, probably something like this letter we're about to get into.
I think so.
I think so. And I think that's why it hits me so hard, because, I mean, it's incredibly convicting. I mean, I've had a couple of things this week that just in going through to learn and to immerse myself into it, I mean, it's impossible to read this and point fingers and not feel some of it. So yeah, anyways, first thing on my heart that I thought I'd share, something of a small story that kind of a story of conviction that was birthed out of my studying this week. While I am doing all the works, I'm growing in my faith, I'm growing in my love for both Jesus and people. I really sat down to evaluate myself this week. I'm back into doing my Proverbs reflections every morning, 3:45 until about 7:30 every morning, which has really helped me stay grounded and then also enter into studying Revelation with the correct posture. And it's interesting how God has been weaving all of that together, and not just one day to Revelation and then the next day to something different, but one day that bleeds into the next day, but it almost completes the story. For example, I'm not going to really go into a whole lot of detail, but I mean, it's worth sharing something that really kind of helped me this week, that really started convicting me just on a small level. This is kind of where I want you guys to start to really frame things, is that everything should be framed eternally. Every choice you make matters. Every compromise you make matters. Even the little tiny ones, even the ones that don't seem like they matter, everything matters. I was confronted with that this week. In Proverbs 4:26, Solomon writes, "Ponder the path of your feet, then all your ways will be sure." Ponder, to examine, to really make sure you're weighing it, but you're weighing it against the Word of God. You're weighing it against what you know to be true. And then the promise is unlocked, because then if you choose to ponder it with Him and eternity in mind, then He will make sure all your paths are sure, that you have sure footing, your foundation is solid, so that no matter what happens, you're solid. That was on the 4th of this month, just a couple days ago. The very next day, Proverbs 5:21, "For a man's ways are before the eyes of the Lord, and he ponders all his paths." I'm like, wait a minute. Now, just for context, when I wake up in the morning, I wake up, I run in, take a shower really quick. My showers are like 30 to 45 seconds long. They're really super short.
You could live in Kenya.
It's one of those things that when it came from going on like youth mission trips or youth just like camps or Bible stuff like that. We had 70 or 80 people, and if we all had to take showers, it was like 3-minute showers, let's go. It started back when I was younger, and it just made sense to me. I'm like, I don't need to waste time in the water. I'm bored. Like, maybe it's a little bit in my ADHD too. But I get in, I get my stuff done, and I get out. I have stuff to do. So anyways, I get up in the morning, jump in the shower. By 3:50, 3:55, I'm already sitting down ready to read. Now, when I open up my Bible, I immediately pray, God, get me out of your way. Please tell me what you want me to know today. I'm wrong about something. Show me where. That's how I approach it. Because I know I'm waking up. If I approach the day my way, I'm gonna screw it all up. So show me what's in my heart right now, based on what happened yesterday, what I dreamt about, what I thought about, what I can't control. I surrender all that to you right now. Help me figure it out. And then I start reading. And as soon as I get to a verse, and I go, wait a minute. I'm like, okay, God, what do you want me to know? And I go through that verse, and then I immediately go into the interlinear, and I go, what's the Greek say? What's the Hebrew say? Where does this correlate? How do I figure this term out? What is going on here? What was this written to? What are we talking about? Why? I get an understanding of what this verse means, then I start writing about it. I explain what he has just showed me through the verse, and I did that on the 4th, and I did that on the 5th, and on the 4th, I'm like, okay, I need to ponder the path of my feet to make sure all my ways are sure. But then the very next day, it's like God's saying, hold on a minute, for your ways are before my eyes, and I ponder all your paths. But this is the way that he does it. He already examines all my paths. So the way that I'm doing it, I should be examining it before, but God is already in the moment that I've lived. He's in every single moment that I've already lived, in every moment that I'm going to live. So he's already there. He sees it. He knows the outcome. And he's ordained my steps. So if I just say, God, where am I supposed to go? And I follow what his lead is, then I know that they are sure. And it says, God ponders my paths, but all of my ways are before his eyes. Now that brought me right back to Revelation, because, I mean, shoot, his eyes are like fire. He sees everything. All of my steps, before I even take them, he sees them. So instead of saying, God, I need to make the right choice, I'm like, God, you know the right choice. Show me the right choice. That way, when I take that step, I know, even if I'm unsure because, ooh, this is hard, this is difficult. So that's where I started there. It really hit me, and it really got me thinking about paths. Now, the way that I ride my bike out in the morning, I live pretty close to 395. I mean, I take 20 seconds to get to 395, and I hop up and over, and I'm down, or I'm crossing 7th, or whatever the case is. But due to laziness and arrogance, the path to get up onto the sidewalk happens to be a little bit steeper than I like, and it's kind of out of the way. And so I'll just come right around the little, and I'll hop up onto the curb and directly across it. What to me, I never even thought twice about it, looks kind of like public land. There's no fences, and it's just grass, whatever, and I'm just riding right along the tree line, maybe 15, 20 feet in from the sidewalk. No big deal. I've been doing that for months. Well, this week, I see no trespassing signs put up on the trees. And I went, uh-oh. Okay, yeah, cool. And then the very next day, on the 5th, I read that God sees all my paths, and he ponders them. And I should be pondering them too. And I go, what path am I taking here? It's easier. Maybe I should stop doing that. Yeah, I'll stop doing that. So I started taking a different path, and it was fine. Until later on that day, I couldn't get it out of my head, and I couldn't figure out why. I'm like, man, that just seems weird. Maybe, I mean, I shouldn't have done it, but I mean, I'm not doing it anymore. And God's like, yeah, but you're missing something. Because whoever lives there had to go out of their way to put up signs. So they still think, and they know who you are. So what if they show up to church one day? And they're like, dude, that's the guy that rides through my yard every day. I got to take care of this. So I rode my bike, and I parked it out in front of his house on the sidewalk. I walked on the sidewalk to his driveway, never touched his grass, went up to his door, knocked on his door, He has a no soliciting sign, so he opens the door and he doesn't say a word. He just gives me the meanest grimace and points right at the no soliciting sign. I go, "Sir, I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm sorry. I needed to I just 30 seconds of your time." And he goes, "For what?" And I go, "I need to ask for your forgiveness." And he goes, "For what?" And I go, "Those no trespassing signs that you put up on your trees, you put those up because the guy was riding his bike through your yard. Is that right?" And he goes, "Yeah." And I go, "I'm that guy." And I realized once those signs were up that I was being incredibly arrogant riding through your yard. I have no right to do that. And for me to continue doing that and then just get away with it, I needed you to know that you can take the signs down if that was the only reason you put them up. I'm very sorry. I mean, I shouldn't have been doing it, and I need you to know it won't happen again. And he just kind of looked at me kind of confused and, "Okay, thanks," and went back in and shut the door. But I felt that weight gone. Because I felt like, man, I changed this guy's behavior because of what I was doing. Just stopping the behavior wasn't enough. I had to make it right. I was convicted about it far beyond just, okay, don't ride through that yard anymore. Take 5 extra seconds and go around. I had to say something. So today, as we get into the letter to Smyrna, not Smyrna, sorry, Thyatira. Thyatira is different than the rest of our cities that we've been looking at. The church was blowing up, not in size, and we'll look at that in a little bit, but Thyatira wasn't based on a port. It was more inland. It was more of a central business hub. It wasn't an intellectual hub. It wasn't a giant hub for worship. They did have a temple for Apollos, what they considered, one of his titles was the sun god. But life in Thyatira was really all about the grind, all about business, all about, guilds. What we would commonly refer to now as unions. Who's been in a union? Who are my union guys? All right. So, what did you guys do in the union? Roger, what union were you in, and what'd you do?
AFSCME, American Federation of State Municipal Employees. For city.
Okay. Frank, what about you?
I've been here at the local union, IBEW, and I was an electrician out on the plant, and I happened to be the shop steward for 17 years.
All right. And forgive me, remind me of your name. I just blanked on it.
Joe.
Joe? All right. I was either Jim or Joe, and I lost it. I'm so sorry. Joe, what'd you do? And what union were you with?
I was in the carpenters.
Okay.
I was a cabinet maker, supposedly in cabinet makers, but they threw us into the carpenters and threw us under the bus. So,
Okay.
like, you guys got no say. Just
Yeah.
ignore us and.
All right, so that's a really good example of how you were a part of a union, but when that union made choices, you didn't really have a say.
True.
You were kind of at the whim at the union in certain aspects. What they said goes, and you had to follow. They said go this way, you had to, otherwise, well, you're out of the job, you're out of the union, right?
Yep.
And the union gave you some protection, and it gave you some security in a way, right?
Yeah.
Would you say, those of you that were in the union, that it was a very important part of your success? You know where I'm going. So for those of you that aren't in a union, I mean, imagine just being in a job where you kind of have a culture associated with that particular job. You have a boss that is almost dictator in style. I've worked for a few. They're tough, but I mean, depending on your personality style, you either thrive or you sink. But I mean, outside of just unions, there's different groups, there's different clubs. I mean, shoot, even different churches, different denominations, different churches in the same denomination. different campuses of the same church. There's all types of different groups, and a lot of the times when these groups have these power, or this kind of power, they influence choices. When the group gets big enough, if those choices don't align with your personal choices, you kind of have to make some concessions in order to be a part of what we call sometimes the greater good. Be a part of something bigger so that, it gives me security, it pays the bills, and although I don't like it, it's kind of one of those things. I'll just do it. Some of these guilds, to get into these guilds or unions back in the day, you had to swear allegiance to them. And that would have hit some people wrong just because they know they don't swear allegiance to anybody but Jesus. So to hold your right hand up and swear allegiance to a guild, it would have been that first little compromise. Knowing it's technically wrong, but I can hold my hand up and say the words and I can kind of get through it. But by saying those words, you're making a profession. You're saying, I buy into this and I subscribe to it, and this is how things are. So you've got this culture of guilds in Thyatira that's been there for years. It's an established route. You've got tent makers, you've got copper workers, you've got carpenters, stone workers, you've got tent builders, tent makers, you've got dyers. There was a particular kind of snail that grew off in the coast that they would import in that would give them the most beautiful purple dye. It was a rare snail, only grew in that particular side of the area. I forgot the name, it's not important. But that's where they get that purple dye that really came from Thyatira. But the culture was of guilds. You had to join a guild in order to become successful. That was how things were. But these guilds were based on pagan practices as well. Most often, you would need to go and deliver sacrifices, offer sacrifices, eat sacrificial meat that was offered to pagan gods in order to be a part of and continue to be a part of these guilds. If you wanted to be successful, you had to compromise. If you were a first century Christian in Thyatira, it was very, very difficult to be successful if you didn't compromise. So compromise was running rampant throughout the church. We see that the church was growing in numbers. Back in this time, Thyatira would have been anywhere from about 15 to 20,000 people. Not huge. Definitely not the size of Ephesus, where it was about 200,000. Definitely not the size of Pergamum. We didn't have multiple temple worship. We didn't have all of that. We didn't have the stature. This was kind of an unknown area. This wasn't very popular. This was one of those, like if we're talking about the Tri-Cities, this is one of those Burbank, Benton City. It's a place with real people, but when you're talking about Tri-Cities, your first thought isn't Kaiby Market. Right?
Where's Kaiby Market?
Exactly. It's in Benton City. It's the only real grocery store out there besides the Dollar General. But that's more commercialized. It's a mom and pop shop. It's Mark and Lori, or Mark and something. They've been out there. They run the thing for I don't know how many years. And yeah, just a little shop. They've got a couple of little tiny churches. It's like
Thyatira.
Thyatira. It's T-H-Y. No. Yeah, Thyatira. Thyatira, yes.
I'd say I've never heard of Thyatira.
Oh, okay.
And it doesn't exist.
That's my fault. And now that city, Thyatira, is gone, but it's now called Akhisar.
Oh.
So now it has a couple of 100,000 people, but still based in agriculture, still based in blue-collar workers, essentially. But in that day, there was a small and blossoming church growing in Thyatira, but remember, you have these guilds that have been the process of society for as long as anybody can remember, for generations. This is the way things have worked. So you are born into a family, you get to a certain age, you join the guild, it's just how things go, you progress. And now there's this new radical line of teaching about Jesus that's coming into this church. You're learning about grace, you're learning about the love of Jesus who came and lived a perfect life and died and rose again. It's a whole new way of thinking. And now we're being told, hold on a minute, Jesus is the only king, he is the only one we swear allegiance to, and we start to feel a little bit more tension between the way things are on the surface and then the way things we read in scrolls. We're like, wait a minute, this is not, and that's not what I'm hearing from this little gathering that we have. I don't understand. Like, how do I make this tension go away? How do I figure out how I don't like this place of tension? A lot of us just search for being comfortable. We don't like being in tension. It's uncomfortable. So we look for the path of least resistance. And a lot of people in Thyatira were doing just that. They were searching for the path of least resistance.
So the guilds were everything. Saul, was a tent maker, which means when he was a Jew, he swore allegiance to them. Wasn't that against the Jewish religion also? And then as he continued being a tent maker, he's enjoying all the perks of being in the tent maker guild wherever he goes. So he had to come to terms with that.
Interesting.
And there was
I never thought of it that
point
way.
where somewhere else, I can't remember where, that somebody was the I forget what his term was, bodyguard or whatever, to an emperor who he had to take into the temple of Dagon. I think it was Dagon, and had to bow down with the king at that point. And he was asking whoever it was, can I be excused from when I bow down because of my position? Can I be excused from worshiping? And my worship is only to God. So it's like there is that dichotomy where I'm not sure what I'm doing. I know what I believe. And it was also where they could eat the food offered to the pagan gods. But if they were questioned by somebody who believed that, then they were not to eat it. So
Right.
there's a lot of things to where
Yeah, exactly. That's perfect because there's more. It brings out more tension. You have this new teaching of you can eat the meat that has been sacrificed. That's fine. You're not subject to those laws anymore. We're under something new, a new covenant. So you're not under that law anymore. Yes, you can eat that meat, but context. If somebody else is seeing you do that and it's going to cause them to stumble, don't do it. So yes, you can. You have the freedom to do it, but don't do it if somebody else is going to look at that and it's going to cause them to question and have them stumble in their own baby faith. Everybody is in this baby faith right now, so just keep that in mind. When you have the freedom, but you also have eyes on you, and unless you want to try to explain that, and oftentimes we can't even explain our behavior to people, they just observe it and go. So unless what you're doing is self-contextual, does that make sense? Like, unless you're doing something that people look at and go, oh yeah, obviously that makes him a Christian, I see that. If you're doing anything other than something that would point people to Jesus, that you would have to explain, well, this is why I do it this way, probably shouldn't be doing it in the eyes of other people. And then if you're doing it in private, we're going to get into how Jesus sees that too, and he calls that behavior out very specifically. But as we get in here, we're going to start in chapter 2, verse 18. I say start, and we're halfway through already. Sorry, guys. And we begin with, and to the angel of the church in Thyatira write. We know from previous weeks, and to the angel of the church is just the messenger, the pastor, the leader of that church that would be taking communication from the scribes that were bringing that communication and delivering it to that congregation. The words of the Son of God, who has eyes like a flame of fire and whose feet are like burnished bronze. Now we saw in chapter 1 that Jesus was called the Son of Man. I was looking for it, I didn't highlight it. We saw that he was called the Son of Man in one of his titles. Now, I'm not going to get caught on that. I'm just going to go. So, in chapter 1, he's called the Son of Man. And then, in here, in our verse in 18, we see Son of God. So we saw that in chapter 1, when we see Son of Man, he is describing himself this way to relate to the humanity of the church that he writes it to everyone. Now here when he says Son of God, he is now showing his elevated, glorified status of, I am the Son of God. I have the title Son of God, which means I am God. I have all authority. And then speaking to his authority again, who has eyes like a flame of fire, reminding everybody of that title that we've already covered in the beginning of Revelation. Eyes like a flame of fire that see everything. They're piercing, laser-like vision, precision. You cannot escape this vision. And whose feet are like burnished bronze. Burnished bronze gone through the furnace. We read also in the beginning of Revelation about how those burnished bronze feet are glowing. And bronze we also know to be from Leviticus. Every single piece of equipment and utensils used for sin offerings, for judgment offerings, those were all bronze. So we know now this is a picture of judgment, and we see that Jesus has eyes like a flame of fire. He sees everything. He will be judging everything. The Son of God, all authority, who has eyes like a flame of fire and whose feet are like burnished bronze. This is like last week when he said, I know where you live. This is kind of threatening language. This is kind of, oh boy, what's coming next?
You think that might have been a carryover from the fiery furnace with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego?
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Absolutely.
Could carry all the way.
Absolutely. Carry all the way from the flaming, the bush too.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. But notice in verse 19 that Jesus starts with softer language again. He starts with building his people up first. He recognizes them. He uses that same term, I know. I know your works, your love, and your faith, and service, and patient endurance. Patient endurance, that's that hupomone. The love and faith, and your latter works that exceeded the first. So it shows the church in Thyatira is growing, not necessarily in giant stature of numbers and prominence and world vision, but they are working. And in contrast to Ephesus, they have love too. They haven't lost their first love. They're loving people. They're loving other people. They're loving Jesus the way he's supposed to be loved. They're loving people the way Jesus taught them to love, the way they've heard from Paul. If you were to walk into this church, it would be like, wow. This church not only, wow, there's an energy to this church. Not just, wow, okay, nice building. They got a whole bunch of screens on the walls and sound system looks nice. No, we're talking the people are what are making this church thrive. You walk in the door, you're greeted. Welcome greeting, not just a, hey, welcome in. Hey, I haven't seen you before. What's your name? You feel like you're part of it already. You feel drawn out of obscurity and brought into a family. These people were loving each other. Check it out. The children's ministry must have been great there too. Family was a huge thing in this day. So to have a gathering that you could go to, are you going to take your kids to the pagan temples, to the orgies? So imagine that. On your orgy day, You kiss the wife and kids goodbye, you go up to your orgy center, you do all this pagan stuff, then you come back? How are you going to reconcile that? How do you kiss your wife at the end of the night knowing what you've just done all day, saying, that's for the guild?
Yeah, so it's just part of being a carpenter.
Yeah, it's just the way things are. I can't help it, honey. You want me to pay for the family? You want food on your table? I got to do it. I'm sorry. This is just how things are. It's where we live. He says, I know your works. He's seeing this church thrive. He's seeing all of them love on each other and acts of service. He's seeing people just get together. He's seeing people just meet in homes. They're showing up to the congregation for the big gathering. They're showing up in small homes to get small groups together, to really pull and push on these ideas that we're talking about throughout the week and on Sundays. We're trying to dive into the text. We're trying to figure out what things are and how to get them right.
That kind of reminds everybody of what this world's going through right now. You know, everybody's doing what, you know, they tell them to do. It's like Hollywood, you know.
Yes.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
The world is crazy.
Isn't it weird that I don't pay attention to a lot of it, but every once in a while you'll see, I'll see a picture on social media just of like a collage of all these popular artists, but they're all dressed in red or blood or have horns, and it's all this devil imagery now. And it's not uncommon. It is really starting to take over the mainstream. It started back where, I remember in my day, it was a Marilyn Manson that everybody thought was weird and satanic. And, the news talked about him all the time, about how he was trying to sway kids to shoot up schools and kill people. And it was a big thing. It was like outrage against this one guy. Now, we parade these people around wearing these satanic outfits, and we're like, wow, that is beauty. That's where culture's going to. That's amazing. And this has become normalized. We talked about that last week, how theater in Greek times, that was pushing culture. This is explaining how culture is supposed to be going, what direction we're supposed to be heading in, and it runs counter to what Jesus is saying. And that's, again, some of the culture that we're finding in these guilds in Thyatira. So my question, I guess, for all of this, is it possible to be growing outwardly in a church, to be growing in love for people, to be doing the acts of service, to be working, to be showing up to church, to be singing the songs, but you're still drifting inwardly, you're still making compromises inwardly? You still have that tension where you're like, well, I do that, but I probably shouldn't be doing this, but... Is there any area in your life right now that you can identify that says, ooh, probably shouldn't be riding through that yard? It's a little thing, it's stupid, it doesn't really necessarily, it matters. Specifically to guilds or unions, Frank, I'm going to put you on the spot. Can you remember a time when you were in the union that you were asked to do something, or there was a direction that we were heading in that you did not agree with, something that was said that was completely counter to what you believe in, and you either were forced to compromise or put up a stand?
Well, I don't think you're forced to compromise. But let me say at the beginning, as you're doing this, I like the saying, and I think I try to apply it to myself, and sometimes I don't. Reading the Bible. We say we read the Bible, but the Bible reads us, and that's what you're bringing out. When we read it, it's like James. You look in the mirror, and you just go away and not remember what you do. You got to let the scriptures, as you're saying. So, being in a union, I had a pastor at one time in the early 80s, because there was no work. I was out of work for a year. He says, you need to quit the union. And we were going through the book of Revelation, by the way. And you need to get out of the union. I said, that was a tough decision for me because of what I gave my whole life to. But even being the steward out there, I don't think, look, the union says things, and I never really joined the union here, believe it or not. And they said, we really don't want to make you the steward because you're not a member of this local. I was a member of Local 3 back east. And I had a conviction, I don't want to give up my ticket back there. So there was times, even in a union today, and it's not like here, this was pretty mandatory that you had to do certain things. We don't have to succumb to that. I'll put it to you this way. I'll give you a speech my brother made in the Union. He says, "I killed babies for the Union," and he got an applause. I mean, that was my brother. In contrast, I said, I'm not that dedicated to the Union that I would take that stance. There's certain things that we have, but still, I would admit, like when the guy told me I should. There's things that the Union stands for that you are taking a stance for. It's like when you give your money to certain things, that money is being used for whatever they're propagating, and you may not agree with it. So you got to take a hard line on where you are. But in life in general, we constantly, and I'll say, when I look at the scriptures, and I think a good sermon this week was Matthew and saying, you got to keep your eyes on the Lord.
Yeah.
And no matter what you're under the pressure to do, just like this, and the Lord is talking to these people, do you do what you're under pressure to do? Or you're standing, where's your eyes? They got to be focused on the Lord all the time. And I appreciate you sharing by going up to that guy's door. I mean, that's what we need to do. Because I think the world needs to see, number one, it says, you'll know they are Christians
By their love.
by their love. That's the key. Not their knowledge, not their expository teaching. By their love. It would be a tinkling symbol as far as that goes. It's the love.
But I think it's even harder than that, further away it gets. You think about the 50 years until the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, where our payment of federal taxes,
Yes.
part of it was going to kill babies
Yeah.
in abortion. And you say the Pledge of Allegiance. We do it every week at Rotary, and it's like, oh, I don't agree with everything our government does, and thank goodness after only 50 years, we stopped killing babies with our federal dollars.
But here again, it goes to this, and this is where probably being a Christian in a union and even paying your taxes. The problem with taxes are, and it goes for stuff as we see in the news. Do you pray over your taxes? Do you give them willingly as the Lord? Whose picture's on the coin? We're going to the singular season. But we give it with that negative attitude. We put a curse on the money when it leaves our hand. So it goes there. I think we need to implement what the scripture says, even the duality of what we live in, and implement as much as we can to wherever we are and whatever we're in. And I think that's where we need to fall under that conviction. Now, do I always do it? No. I don't really like paying taxes, but now I know where to be. Hey, the Lord's giving me this money, giving my taxes, we gotta pay taxes. But pray over those taxes. Don't put them in the bondage of giving them with that evil spirit, I guess. Or a sense of,
I agree. It's like it's what you just said. Like we put a curse on the money, and if we believe that the money comes from God, that means we're cursing something that God gave us, which is basically putting a curse on God's gift to us. Now, what if we were to, because God gives us the Holy Spirit as a gift, right? So does that mean like we're putting a curse on the Holy Spirit as well? You know, which that would be the unforgivable sin. So we should be taking it, doing all these things with joy in our heart. The fact that we have to pay taxes, but we also get to pay taxes. You know, we should give joyfully because those taxes are going to fund our government, going to fund programs that help people out. You know, it's basically like tithing to the government, you know, which the government is installed because of God. He raises kings and he brings them down. So we should be doing it with a joyful heart. You know, I agree.
Yeah, and then also knowing that you don't have any real say outside of voting on where the money goes. The only control you really have over it is being a good steward of it. And that's more than just sending it off. Frank, you bring this up, that You can pray over that money and send it out like a weapon.
Yeah.
Be like, when this money gets there, help it be used for some change. Help whoever is working with this money. I know it's all digital now. Nobody's counting the money. But whoever's going to be accessing this particular money, wherever it ends up, bless that account and help it be worked for your good, God. Why not? Something simple like that. It's not about the money. It's about the way you're looking at it. It's about changing your heart and seeing it eternally from an eternal perspective so that you can say, I can't change it. Almost like that serenity prayer. Help me change the things I can, but surrender the things I can't. I can't change that, so what am I going to do? Pray about it so that my heart isn't bitter about it. So my heart doesn't develop some festering evil grossness inside that I'm going to have to, God, please clean me out again. See it before it happens. Examine those steps on that path before you get there. And for the church at Thyatira, we've got this guild mentality. We've got this struggling little church that is growing in faith and works and love. But in verse 20, but I have this against you, that you tolerate that woman Jezebel, who calls herself a prophetess and is teaching and seducing. Teaching and seducing. Teaching. The church at Thyatira is tolerating Jezebel teaching. Was her name actually Jezebel? Probably not, because by this time the name Jezebel, we would know, was very famous and not for good reasons. That it's actually pretty funny. Who's got a Bible open right now? Actually, yeah. Okay. Topher, do me a favor. Look up 2 Kings 9:33 for me. So, really quickly, if you're not overly familiar or the details are a little fuzzy about Jezebel,
What version do you want?
doesn't matter.
Okay.
You're
I'm
good.
an amplified. So.
You're good. Oh, okay. ESV then, if I can choose. So, Ahab, king of Israel, wicked king, he marries this woman, Jezebel. And Jezebel's dad worships Baal, right? But his name even means son of or worshiper of Baal. That's his name. And this is where Jezebel comes from. Baal worship. Marries Ahab, king of Israel. Now she's... What's that?
Sorry.
Oh, you're good. She's savage, though. Because she sees that Ahab wants some land that's adjacent to his palace. He goes over to Naboth and he says, hey, I want this land. Naboth's like, no, man, I'm sorry. God forbid I get rid of this land. This is my family. I got to keep it. This is our land. Naboth was grumpy about it, went back to the temple, or back to his palace, and he's frumpy, right? He's stewing in it. He's going to let it go, though. He tells Jezebel. She's like, wait, what? What happened? And he's like, well, I tried to get the land, but I can't have the land. He doesn't want to sell me the land. And she's like, oh, you are crazy. You're king, aren't you? Aren't you a man? You're not going to go take what's yours? What's wrong with you? Whatever, dude, go to bed. So he goes to bed. She decides to go behind the king's back, creates this devious little plan, ends up having a couple people killed. She puts handcuffs on that land, walks back to Naboth, tells him what happened. Now he's got a choice. I'm sorry, not Naboth. Ahab. Now, he's got a choice. He could say, what are you doing? Woman, what are you doing? He knows better. He's king of Israel. Come on. Compromise. I wanted that land. Well, it's already done. I didn't really do it. It wasn't really my fault. But it's already there. I mean, I might as well. Compromise, just like that. And she ends up bringing Baal worship into the house of Israel, and the whole house falls apart eventually. So this is who we're talking about when we're talking about Jezebel. And even Elijah. Elijah says in 1 Kings 21, the word of the Lord came to Elijah, and he says, in the place where dogs licked up the blood of Naboth, shall dogs lick up your own blood. In verse 23, and of Jezebel, the Lord also said, the dogs shall eat Jezebel within the walls of Jezreel. That happened. You don't believe me? Topher. Get it.
Oh, okay.
Come on.
Don't go back to sleep.
He said, throw her down. So they threw her down, and some of her blood spattered on the wall and on the horses, and they trampled on her. Yes.
All the way to 37.
Oh.
Yeah, it's good.
Then he went in and ate and drank. And he said, see now to this cursed woman and bury her, for she is a king's daughter.
Yeah, but what happened?
But when they went to bury her, they found no more of her than the skull and the feet and the palms of her hands.
Oh, fingers gone.
When they came back and told him, he said, this is the word of the Lord which he spoke by his servant Elijah,
Oh.
the Tishbite. In the territory of Jezreel, the dogs shall eat the flesh of Jezebel, and the corpse of Jezebel shall be as dung on the face of the field in the territory of Jezreel, so that no one can say, this is Jezebel.
Can you hear him? He's like, huh? Called it. God's word. It blows me away every time I see things like that. When he speaks something that's going to happen, then a long time later it actually comes to pass exactly the way. And then the details about how it's actually explained, they're not the exact same details, but they explain how the details are the same. It's insane. I love it. It's just, I had to get that in there because it's like, okay, well, this is who we're talking about. This person, Jezebel, we don't know that her name was Jezebel in Revelation. We don't know that. But we do know she was Jezebel-ish.
Right.
That's the point. She's Jezebel-ish. So, when we have this Jezebel-ish type character, first of all, we see these Jezebel types. They're sensual manipulators. I'm not just talking about girls. Boys can be sensual manipulators too. They're deceptive persuaders. They'll get up into your ear. They'll talk any kind of way to get eventually what they need, and then they're gone. For the time being, they got what they needed. They're out. They're idol worshipers, and in today's day and age, that's not going to be, look at this, worship this, this is amazing. No, this is going to be like, hey, I've got a rosary on. Right? Most people look at that and they're like, oh, they're religious. Yeah, that's religious. But when you see rosaries, do you feel it's wrong to go up to them and ask them about their faith and ask them why they wear that and challenge them about that? Or do you see it and walk away? If you see another believer, now, I'm going to get real about this, because I was challenged about this too. I noticed a good friend of mine who had something in their house, and I was like, wait a minute. And I was over at Topher's house. Yeah. We talked about, you remember this. I saw something. It's just one of those like Himalayan pink salt lamps or whatever. And that's fine. But the only context I've ever seen those in is they offer healing. And I went, oh, wait a minute. I need to address that with my friend Topher. Because that right there could be a form of idolatry he's not aware of. So I wanted to be like, hey, Topher, gosh, this is awkward. Can we talk about that salt lamp? Because I've only really heard that people use them for healing properties in their house. You keep them on and it like, whatever, throughout the night or whatever. And he's like, oh, no, I just think it looks cool. Oh, okay. No problem there, then. I mean, that's fine. That goes along the same lines as, people can use it to worship. He's not using it to worship. Neither does his wife, Michelle. It's nothing along those lines. They just like the way it looks. It's cool. And I got to be honest, it is really super cool. But I felt the need to say something. Even if it made me a jerk to my best friend, I had to be like, bro, if there is a possibility that this is where you're heading with that, we got to talk about it. I have to have that uncomfortable conversation because...
If you can't call out your friend, who can you call out?
Yeah, and that's the point, is I wasn't trying to do it out of, any other reason than just love. Love for him and just making sure that we were on the same page. But a lot of times, these Jezebel types, they will say things like, or they will have a love for creation more than a love for the Creator. Anything that they love more, whether it's going to be entertainment, fashion, hobbies, whatever the case is, if that takes precedence in their life over God, that's Jezebel type relation, or Jezebel type behavior. Now,
The other thing that can happen is he almost turns that over 180 degrees. If you have a religious, a Christ symbol, the cross, right? Sometimes the devil and people that want to use that turn it around. I
Right.
had in my office in the flight tube for 21 years, I had a cross on the wall that you had to walk by to get in my office. And every person that I ever hired, every company I ever hired that mentioned that cross when they walked in and said, "Oh, hey, I see you're a Christian, I'm a Christian too," they refused to pay their bill after we did the work. Every one of them. Wow. I mean, after the second one, I started to be a little bit smarter, but the devil would use that symbol to kind of get like, well, your company's going to be great for me because you're going to do good work, and I'm not paying. And so the world is complicated.
Yeah,
you could see
it very much
It
is.
isn't just a symbol that might look like something that's evil. The devil can even use the Christian symbols.
Yep.
And I think a lot of the, especially, I really like stuff from other parts of the world. I just put up again my 4-foot-high obelisk that I got in Egypt 2 years ago. And it was really important to me to get something like that. This is fiberglass, obviously, but I put it up in the end of my pool area. But the most important thing about it is the crack. It shows the crack all the way around it at kind of an angle that's exactly like the one that's in Egypt.
Oh, cool.
Because they all cracked eventually. Some of them cracked in the ground. They didn't take them out. This one, it did crack, and they would get mortar guys in and fix it as best they could. But to me, it represented the shortness of what we can do as humans. Even in that case, they were trying to say something great about whoever happened to be king or queen at that time. But it was still cracked, and they had to fix it. You know?
Yep. So you mentioned that the world is complicated. It can be very complicated, and it is very true that, I mean, sometimes when you're living in this world, you have to try to figure out, I mean, if I profess my faith, that's going to cost me something, and is it worth it? And that's again where we come back to an eternal perspective. Yeah, if it's going to hurt here, but eternally, it's worth it. Now with Thyatira, because they were growing in love and works and faith, and they were bringing people in, and people were walking through the doors, and they were explaining who this Jesus was, and they were growing, and it was an amazing thing. They were including people, but that inclusivity started getting them in trouble, not just with who they allowed in, but who they allowed to start teaching. And I know that we're right there coming close to time, so I don't want to get too far into it, but with Jezebel, she was a false prophet. It doesn't say it in the text that she was false, but the 3 words right after her name tell me she was false. But I have this against you, that you tolerate that woman, Jezebel, who calls herself a prophetess. She's calling herself a prophetess and is teaching and seducing my servants. Now, in Ephesians, we know in chapter 4, verse 11, and he gave the apostles, the prophets, the evangelists, there she was, prophets, the shepherds and teachers to equip the saints for the work of the ministry, for building up the body of Christ. Are you wondering why I'm saying "the" so weird? Anybody? Because that's a modifier. That's a definitive modifier. When he says, and he gave the apostles, some, it's a specific group of, not all. This means some people have the gift of apostolic ministry. Some have the gift of prophecy. Some are evangelists. Not all. Not all of us are called to go throughout the world and knock on doors and tell everybody about Jesus. Some are called to actually stay in the jobs where it puts pressure on us to live a certain way so that we shine our light about Jesus to other people in a dark world. But he gives to each of them, he equips the saints for the work of ministry, for building up the body of Christ. And then verse 13, until we attain the unity of faith. That means through hell, through heartache, through division, through fights in the church, arguments, we all attain the unity of the faith and the knowledge of the Son of God to mature manhood. That is the whole point of the New Testament. Not to make us feel good about grace, not to make us feel like, woo, saved, I'm good now. To mature manhood, to the measure of the stature of the fullness of Christ. Verse 14, so that we may no longer be children, tossed to and fro by the waves and carried about by every wind of doctrine, like Jezebel, by human cunning, by craftiness and deceitful schemes. Rather, grow up. Speaking the truth in love, we are to grow up in every way into him who is the head, into Christ. This is the hard conversations that we were talking about. This is the rebuke. You cannot have growth, real growth and real unity, unless you have those hard conversations. Unless we address those issues, like me just telling you, I rode my bike through some guy's yard and got caught for it. But here's what I did about it. I'm opening up myself. It's a stupid little thing, I know, but you guys know about my whole driving situation. Some don't. We'll talk about that if you guys come back. I'll give you a little bit more about that too. But you guys know some of the struggles that I've gone through. But you know I'm still here. And you know I'm still choosing to follow him, choosing to seek him, choosing to be a disciple, because I know it's not just for now, it's an eternal standpoint. We're going to talk a lot more about Thyatira next week. I didn't really get maybe about halfway, but that's okay. Just so you have a little peek through behind the scenes, I was challenged this week to shift the way I'm doing things here, to engage people more, to not just have me get up here and talk, but to start asking more questions, to start addressing more ideas, to start getting real engagement. And so I'm not great at that. It's, again, the next step of faith for me. I was just asking God this last 2 weeks, God, what's my next step of faith? I don't necessarily know. Like, is it like a giant step in ministry? Like, what am I supposed to be doing? Where's my faith going to grow? How do you want to use me in this next season? Like, what am I supposed to be doing? I've been doing this teaching thing or this Wednesday morning leading thing for 9 months now. And I just realized that and went, oh my gosh. And then I looked on the calendar and I realized this next Sunday is my 100th Sunday coming back to church after giving my life fully to him and being surrendered. That's a little over 2 years. I was thrilled by that, but I was challenged to get out of this routine of just getting up here and speaking for an hour and trying to engage more. So I'm going to be doing that more. I'm going to be pointing and asking more questions about more people so that we all get more engaged. So that's just a little heads up warning for in the coming weeks. I'll start asking a couple more questions of everybody to get everybody more engaged so that we can grow together. So it's not just another sermon we listen to, but we can start really tying and weaving our heartstrings together and helping each other through some real things, not just our morning prayer requests that we come into. Those are very important. But I mean, what are we going through on a daily basis in our own lives? What compromises are we making that I'm like, shoot, I don't want to talk to anybody about that. That's embarrassing. I'll just confess that. Confessing it to people around helps you put up those guidelines and those boundaries so it doesn't happen again, so that we can ask you about it, so that you can go, man, I don't want to do that now. I gotta be asked about it. It's accountability, and it's good. It'll help us all grow, and it'll put us in that place of uncomfortability that really spurs the real growth. So my final question for everybody to think about is, are we allowing anything in our lives, any kind of compromise that Jesus died to destroy? Anything that we rationalize, that we might go, it's okay. Examine that this week. Examine your steps before you make them. Examine the things you're going to say before you say them. Is it necessary? Is it edifying? Is it positive and encouraging? Does it need to be said? Does it point people to Jesus, or was it just a funny thing that I said? Like, jokes are great and that's fine. You know, I'm not saying we have to say Jesus' name in every sentence. But it should be our focus the majority of the time, to spur on faith, to have conversations, to deepen our understanding, to keep us focused. I mean, in Joshua, he's reminded to be strong, but he's also reminded to keep my commandments all the day long. All day. Not just in the morning, not just in the afternoon, but all day long. It should be how we think and how we address our lives. So, thank you for letting me go. Yes, sir.
What I'm going to take away from this morning is, and try to incorporate in my life this next week, is Jesus living in me, coming out. Jesus is humble, and I'm getting that bottom line of being humble out of all of what we've talked about this morning. Mm-hmm. You walking up to the door of your neighbor, did you walk up there, or did you walk up there humble?
Humble. I was humbled.
And did that work? And did that work for you?
Yeah.
That's what I want to put into my life. If I can, just this next week, to work on, to build on, to make me a better person, to have God living in me. Mm-hmm. Let Him out.
Yeah.
That's
exactly
what I want to do.
Yeah, because I mean, we'll see next week. We'll talk about how, you know, some of the things are deep things of Satan, but really, when we get down to the fundamentals of what our faith should be, I don't need Greek for that. I don't need Hebrew for that. Love Jesus. Love others. Share with others my faith. Share what Jesus has done with me. Love people the way that Jesus would love them. And when I was going through that man's yard, I was not loving him the way Jesus would. So I had to go back and make it right and let him know, man, I see you. I see that you see me. And I wasn't reflecting Jesus right there, and I should have, and you helped me see that. It's convicting. I got to have Jesus chisel that sharp edge off so I reflect a little bit more of Him this next week. And that's a great way to
Well, if
phrase
he'd
that.
been riding through your yard, would it have bothered you at all?
Me personally, no, but I know it should.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's kind of the thought you had. It wouldn't bother me if he drove through my yard, so I'm just going to,
Yeah.
That's life. That's human nature.
Yeah. And instead, trying to focus on, before I do that thing, is that right? Should I do that thing? God, should I? And then listening and
I
doing.
think that should be the Christian's heart. Here again, you put seeds in that guy's life.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think we're not perfect. We're striving in the right direction. And when it comes up, that does more of a testimony, asking forgiveness of someone than telling them how great you are.
Yeah.
You know, it's that humble attitude that we come with.
Yeah, I mean, I could have knocked on that guy's door and tried to preach the gospel to him
Right.
without ever having gone through his yard or anything else. and that never would have landed. He has no soliciting. He didn't want to hear anything I had to say. But I got to shine the little flashlight of Jesus in his eyes for a second. Even though I didn't say Jesus' name, the reason for some random dude coming up to his door, knocking on his door for the sole purpose to say, I'm sorry. Like, who does that? Why? Well, Jesus would have. Well, no, he wouldn't have. He wouldn't have done it in the first place. So, but it's that mentality that I'm trying to get switched over into and just be mindful of eternity at all points in time. So thank you guys for letting me go over too. Let's go ahead and pray and we'll get us out of here. Father in heaven, we thank you so much again for this new day, for this new opportunity. Your mercies are new every morning. Your grace is still there. You are seated on the throne of grace right now. And that essentially is why we can boldly run to you. We still have time to get your forgiveness. Those who are lost still have the time to get grace right now, God. We thank you for that gift, for this new day that we could be focused on you, learn about you, that we can choose to pales is the Hebrew word, pales, that we can examine our steps before we take them, that we can weigh them out against your word so that we can say, God, I know this step I'm going to take is sure because you've ordered it. I know this next room I walk into, I'm supposed to be there. You have called me to be in this room, and I can approach that room with confidence that you've put me in that room for a specific reason, that I'm supposed to reflect your light to everybody that I can. Help us to be mindful of that this week, God. Help us to be sensitive to your presence, not just in our lives, but what you're doing in those around us, those that we may not think or know that you're working in. Help us to be aware of what you're doing in other people's lives too, so that we can perk up our eyes, we can be sensitive to it, we can pray for people, we can love people the way that we're supposed to love people this week, that we can increase our faith, our love, and our wisdom in you. The more we see you, the more that we understand who you are, your attributes, your promises, and the more that we can walk every day in faith, the more that we can walk in boldness, knowing I can claim this promise. I've seen it happen in the Bible. I've seen him keep his promises, and he keeps his promises to me too. Why would he not keep this promise? You promise to keep us safe. You promise to walk by us, to lead us, to guide us. If we seek you first, if we lift our eyes and we give attention to you, God, help us to do that. Not just today, not just after this message falls out of our memory. Help us to keep our eyes and our hearts fixed on you, to be captivated by you, God, to be seeking you so that you will just blow our minds, that keep us in a constant sense of awe. That's the fear of the Lord. That's the fear of Yahweh. You are a relational God that wants to blow our minds. You have so much in store for us, and you just want to show it to us. Help us to look. Help us to hear. Help us to be people with ears to hear and hearts to listen. God, we thank you so much because I know you are already going to do the things that we've asked. You will do it, and we leave this conversation with you knowing that you will be true to your word. We can rely on what you say. Every single word is true, and every single word we've read this morning will not come back void. Every word we can put our trust in and our faith in, knowing that if we humble ourselves and we seek you, you will guide us and our steps will be sure. We thank you for that promise in advance, God, for what you're going to do in each one of our lives and the lives of those that we impact this week. We thank you. And in the mighty and the matchless name of Jesus, we pray. Amen.
Well, good seeing you, Joe.